Today is March the 24th, 2022. My name is Tanya Finchum. I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. With me today via Zoom is Greg Adams, a high school athletic director and teacher in Oklahoma City at Capitol Hill High School. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on life in Oklahoma, and in particular about the impact on high school athletics and athletes. But first, before we get to that, let's learn a little bit about you. Start wherever you like.
Okay. Thanks for having me. Like I said, my name is Greg Adams. I'm married, have 4 children. I'm an Elk City, Oklahoma high school graduate. I attended college at Southwestern Oklahoma State University in Weatherford. I believe this is either my 22nd or 23rd year in public education. I've coached and taught in a Class A school all the way up to 6A. And a few schools in between. I've been in the rural communities, suburbs, and inner city. Feel like I have a pretty good grasp on types of different demographics, cultural backgrounds, economic statuses. And I'm done this for my 23 years in my career.
And how did you get interested in being in education?
Well, my mother was a English teacher for 40 years. And then I'd say since about 6th grade, I knew I wanted to coach. I started wrestling when I was 4 years old. I wrestled, played football, ran track, always enjoyed sports, had quite a bit of individual and team success in sports, but I really enjoyed the camaraderie, the teaching side of it. I don't know if I was the greatest athlete in the world, but I do know that I was always voted team captain, leadership type deal. I enjoyed as a junior or senior working with the younger guys, teaching them things. And then 6th grade, I coached under 8 baseball team, coach pitch, and dads were my assistant coaches. And I was in 6th grade. My mother drove me to the games in her minivan. And so I've always enjoyed coaching, teaching, even in high school. All the neighborhood kids, they would come to my house on Saturday, and my girlfriend, my mom, everyone thought it was strange that I would give up about an hour's time and go out and play all-time quarterback for kids that were like 3rd and 4th grade. They would knock on the door and want to know if Greg could come play. So I would do that, once or twice a week, and I've always enjoyed the teaching side of it.
Okay. Well, give us some timeline. Like, when did you graduate from high school, college?
So I graduated high school in 1994 from Elk City, graduated in 1999. I started lay coaching, which I don't count that towards my public education, at Elk City under head football coach Woody Roof. I believe it was the 97, 98 school year. So I was at Elk City for 3 or 4 years. Hinton, I was only there, UConn for 1 year. I didn't enjoy the 6A side of it. I'm more of a 3A, 4A school and down. I enjoy probably in the coaching side of it for sure, the rural setting where on Friday night they shut down the town, everybody comes to the game. When I was at UConn, there's so many activities going on. There's so many things. We had more people in the stands at Class A Walters than we did at 6A UConn in the stands for football. And it didn't even matter if we were good, bad, or in between. I enjoy, I don't know if you've seen the movie Radio, that type of setting where you have a lot of community involvement. And I know there's pros and cons to it. Sometimes you get some overbearing parents, but I enjoy that side of it a lot more. So I left UConn after 1 year, thought I knew everything. Since I had been a coach, assistant coach and a lay coach for a while. I was pretty young, but at the time I thought it wasn't about the X's and O's or Johnny's and Joe's. I thought it was about just coaching. We're going to win state championship. I don't care how bad this team is. And so I went to Walters. They were on a 23-game losing streak when I took the job. We followed that up with the 0-10 record my first year. And then I think I was there 6 years and we went 0-10, second year 5-5. Third year 7-2 or 7-3 playoffs, 8-2 playoffs, and we continually got better. And that's kind of been my thing as a head coach. I didn't have any interest in going to a Tuttle or a Weatherford or a Clinton and working under someone that was super successful, and then they leave and try to take on a job that was anybody could do that. I wanted jobs that were going to be challenging to me, that they were rebuilding jobs. And so I left Walters after 6 years and I went to the inner city, Crooked Oak, and they'd never made the playoffs in Class 2A, never had a record over 5-5. My first year, we went 2-8. We had a lot of, major issues, a lot of kids in gangs, parents are in gangs. So my first year, it wasn't really even about wins and losses. It was character, accountability, discipline, structure. And that's been kind of my recipe at every place I've been to turn programs around. And if you can build it up from the bottom up with that recipe, you're always going to be successful, because wins and losses take care of themselves after you do those things. So my first year, we went 2-8. My second year, we went 6-4, upset the number one team in the state, first round of the playoff, hosted a playoff game the second year. And that's kind of been what I enjoy doing. My son, when he was a junior, I got out of coaching because I didn't want to miss any of his stuff his junior and senior year. So I got out, I stayed on and continued doing the weightlifting. And then I became an AD, athletic director, after that instead of coaching. So I've been doing the athletic director since.
And how did you come to be at Capitol Hill?
So Capitol Hill, I wanted to get back into somewhat of the athletic side, but I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to jump back into the coaching, because I'm busy with the athletic director job, but it's different than coaching. With me, I either have to be 1,000% in or 1,000% out. If I'm not going to, in my mind, be able to give exactly what I feel like I need to give to the kids, to the community, to the parents, then I'm not going to mess with it. But I did miss somewhat of the athletic side. Adam Jewell, our high school principal at Capitol Hill, contacted me and asked me if I'd be interested in it. And I was, and that's how I become athletic director at Capitol Hill High School.
And when was that?
2016, I believe.
So a few years before COVID hit.
Yes. Yeah. So I 80 at Capitol Hill before COVID, during COVID, and then post, I guess you could say post COVID, but we're still dealing with some of it, but not as bad.
Well, for those who don't know, can you describe Capitol Hill for us, like demographics, that type of thing?
Yes. Capitol Hill is located 4 miles south of I-40 on Western. So it's smack dab, I would say, just for Oklahoma City purposes, I still call it Chesapeake. I think it's called the Paycom Center now. We're probably 5 miles south of where the Thunder play and about a mile east. That's where Capitol Hill High School is located. It's 9th through 12th high school. ADM sits around 1,300 students. We are 81% Hispanic. So that demographic is drastically changed over the last 25 years. And I think it's just on the rise. It's continuing to increase.
Okay. And does a good portion of the student body like work or have parental support, or do you know?
So the parental, I don't know the numbers on this. I've been told by counselors it's almost 50%, that 50% of our students, their parents are illegals. We don't have very many. So parental involvement is very little. Even if you have a student that their cell phone was stolen or something of that nature, their parents will not come up to the school and they're not going to investigate at all because they're worried of being deported. So there's very, very little parental involvement. Our attendance is extremely low, and it's even lower right before a major holiday. We get 2 weeks Christmas vacation. So the week before and the week after Christmas, our numbers are extremely low because they usually go to Mexico, and they just take that, that week before, week after, and now they're gone a month. So our numbers are extremely low. I figured you would bring this up later, and I can talk about it now or I can wait. Academically, we've been in F school for as long as I can remember. The criteria for that is ACT score, attendance, there's several things that make up that. A big part of it is attendance. I run the eligibility report every week for each individual sport, but I also run it for our whole school. So we have 1,300 students. Before COVID, we would have between 500 and 600 students ineligible each week, total students, not just athletes. During COVID, it would be between 900 and 1,100 students ineligible out of a total of 1,300. It's back to around 700 to 800, sometimes 900 now, because we still had dealt with some COVID issues this year, whether it be we don't have enough staff because of COVID and we don't have enough teachers. So anytime we go online learning, it's a huge, huge problem with academics.
When you go online?
Yes.
Is part of that, do they have the equipment even?
They have the equipment. We are 1-to-1 on Chromebooks, and they provided Wi-Fi also.
Before COVID or as a result of COVID?
As a result of COVID. We did not have that. So COVID hit Thursday before spring break. I think it was March 14th of 2020. And we received a call that this was right after that whole Thunder game, Rudy Gobert, that whole thing. Okay, CPS, we're going to shut down school one day early. And we'll be back after spring break. It's just a minor thing, no big deal. Into spring break, okay, we're going to extend it 2 weeks, spring break, no big deal. We're going to get this thing under control, no problem. Obviously, it was longer than that. State Department stepped in, no school. I mean, it was basically it. Oklahoma City tried to do some things I didn't necessarily agree with, but I wasn't in that position. And I don't know, maybe I would have made those same choices. They told the kids that they were going to do packets, and the parents could pick them up and work on the packets, but there would be no grading of the packets. There'd be no accountability. And in my opinion, if you're inner city, suburbs, or rural, it doesn't matter. Kids are kids. If you tell a kid, hey, here's some schoolwork, we want you to do it, but there's no accountability, and whatever grades you had before, that's what it's going to be. The participation is going to be at all time. So that's what happened spring of 2020. And that shut down all sports. You couldn't practice. You couldn't participate as a team. You couldn't do anything. And then you couldn't even hold camps or clinics privately in the summer. There's a coach in Oklahoma City Public Schools who ran a quarterback club, and that was what he did. That was his main income. And he was a volunteer coach, and he ended up getting fired because he the camp. So it was a huge impact on athletics because we're so far behind as it is. When I compared to, like I told you at Walters, I had to coach a lot of levels, but I had complete control over 3rd and 4th grade teaching fundamentals, middle school teaching fundamentals. And then when I got them in junior high and high school, Oklahoma City Public Schools, we have middle school sports, but we don't have all the sports that we have in high school. So some of our sports, they start for the very first time as a freshman, and they're miles behind. So that hurts. I think it impacts us already, even without COVID. Middle school lost 2 years of sports. High school lost just that fall. No, I'm sorry, just that spring of 2020.
I was reading, like, tomorrow is the second anniversary of when the State Department of Education officially closed, lockdown, or whatever you want to call it, closed schools.
Right.
It's 2 years tomorrow. And we have no way of knowing at that point it would still be where we are today, for sure.
And see, this year hasn't been as bad. We had that spike in numbers. I believe it was late December or early January, and we pushed forward with sports. Only thing we did different is we shut down concession stand to kind of limit some of the handling of money and different things, but we still pushed forward with sports. We just had that, I think it was about a week and a half there where we went back to online, but you could still practice. The problem, though, when that's what killed us with sports, is when we're 100% online, transportation is a huge problem. Those kids don't have to get up there. The numbers are low. It's hard. During basketball season, if you have 3 or 4 kids show up for practice, sure, you can do conditioning, you can do shooting drills, but you're not running an offense. You're not teaching different schemes of defense. And that was a major problem. Like I said, this year has been better. We've only had that happen about a week and a half. I guess it would be fall of 2020. We were still no fans in the stands. Our school was on different levels. You had level red, orange 2, and I'm not sure what the level was before. When we hit orange 2, we shut down games. And then we did that for a week or 2. And I think we took some heat and some pressure from a lot of these rural schools and towns. So then they bumped it up. Okay, when we hit level red, there's no games. So obviously the numbers went up and we hit red. So we had to shut down all sports, I think, for 3 or 4 weeks. And during that whole time, middle school still not, that they didn't even have a middle school sports. This was just high school.
How do you make that up? It's hard to make that up.
You don't make it up. I mean, honestly, we can sit here and say, well, you're going to do this, this, and this, and this, but it's hard enough in inner city, the challenges that you have because you don't have any parental support. Take away COVID, you're already behind the 8 ball because you don't start middle school sports until 7th and 8th grade when these other schools are, starting in 4th and 5th grade. And then on top of that, once they get to high school, I can speak on football, for an example. We have varsity football only. We don't have JV and we don't have freshmen. If you're at UConn or Mustang, you have a freshman team, you have a JV team, and you have a high school team. So that hurts tremendously. If you're a freshman at UConn and you start playing varsity football and you're an actual starter, that means you played 8 games as a freshman, game time experience. You played 8 games as a sophomore on the JV team. And now you have 16 games of actual game time experience when you start your varsity game. Capitol Hill, you don't have that.
I don't know how you fix that.
There's hard. A lot of things that are in the works. They've talked about Tulsa Public Schools and OKCPS getting out of the OSSA in football and playing each other in a kind of a conference of OKCPS in Tulsa, because those are the 2 largest school districts in Oklahoma. Both of them struggle with football. One school, John Marshall, has been successful as of late. They may not be in that conference, but most of the Tulsa schools and most of the OKCPS schools, that's what they're going to petition, is to make a conference for right now to hopefully build up the program, increase the numbers, and just really try to get back on a level playing field.
Well, back when they first closed the schools, did you try to pivot to online learning at that point for the rest of the year?
No. So okay. March 2020, nobody knew really what to do. No one had a plan. The only plan was when the State Department said we're shutting it down, the OKCPS said we're going to provide paper and pencil, basically supplies. They can work on basically, I would say, just basic fundamentals of education. Nothing, no one-on-one teaching, no online teaching, nothing like that. So when the State Department shut it down, basically our administrative team, superintendent, assistant superintendent, they had roughly 4 to 5 months to come up with a plan, purchase all the Chromebooks. So every student, every teacher, everyone had a Chromebook and everyone had access to internet provided hotspots. The district provided hotspots also. So there was no reason. We had a month of professional development on teaching strategies online, because most of us teachers have never taught online. And it's a huge difference, I think, teaching in person compared to online. So we were provided about 30 days of professional development. And then I want to say that whole first semester, fall semester of 2020, we were 100% online. Second semester, we started off the first month online because the numbers were going to increase because of the holidays. And when they wanted to see if those numbers were going to drop, and they did drop. We went to an A/B schedule. I want to say somewhere around the middle of February of 2021. students came twice a week. If you were on A schedule, you came Monday, Thursday. If you were on B schedule, you came Tuesday, Friday. And then Wednesday, everybody was online and they deep cleaned the schools.
Okay.
But honestly, that was still a problem also because you're already behind and now you're just coming to school 2 days a week. 2 days you're asynchronous, and then 1 day you're synchronous learning. And again, most of the schools in Oklahoma City Public Schools, it's not to be mean, it's just stating facts. Well, before COVID even hit, we were F schools. Now you take in, you're already in F school, your kids are 100% online, and they don't have the parental support to hold their kids accountable. Or even in some circumstances, the parents want to do that, but they have to work. And the high school student has 4 siblings that are 4, 7, 9, and 10, and they're responsible for making sure they get on their Chromebooks and do their work.
Wow. And for those, for classes, when they showed up for school, did they have to go through like a temperature monitoring and that type of thing?
I don't think we did temperature checks when we finally got to AB. When we were 100% online and we were still playing sports, we had to do temperature checks before they shut down the fans. We had to do temperature checks for the players for practice and games. And
then sanitize the equipment in between, or
you're supposed to. We're supposed to, but it's very difficult with the amount of time you have. And I'm sure everyone tried, but it was definitely difficult.
Was the classrooms arranged differently, like the desks that fixed so that social distancing?
We had to keep them 6 feet apart, and that's why they went to the AB schedule. Because normal schedule, there was no way you could get all the students in a classroom.
And were they like in cohorts, or could they, like passing in the hall when they changed
they were
classes?
Supposed to be 6 feet apart, but high school students, and we all had to wear masks, everything like that.
And were they provided for the students, masks?
Masks were provided for the students. Any type of hand sanitizer, anything like that was provided.
Well, before we get into the next part of this, I want to back up to when, from your standpoint at home, working from home and trying to keep that separation between work and home. Was that a challenge, or how did you work that?
It really wasn't too bad. I have young children, so that was tough at times. But it really wasn't too bad. I taught weightlifting, so obviously the kids didn't have access to weight, so I did more of a body weight exercise. I just treated it as a personal trainer. We did Zoom. I would demonstrate jumping jacks, time them in 30 seconds of jumping jacks, push-ups, air squats, air lunges, a lot of core work, things of that nature. And it seemed to be, the kids had no problems with that.
And they actually showed up for that class?
Believe it or not, they didn't. Numbers were crazy low, and I was super disappointed until I started talking to other people, and they said the same thing, like, hey, I got 30 kids in my class and 3 people showed up.
Do you need a break?
No, I'm fine. Yeah, we're selling our home, and I've got a guy who was calling me, and I texted him back, so we're good.
That's okay. So your concept of home did not change during all this. You managed to navigate that pretty well.
Yeah, it was fine. And this sounds horrible. Like, COVID for our family was great. Again, it sounds awful because I know so many people dealt with, depression, losing their jobs. But my wife and I are both in education. We both had, at the time, my daughter was, I guess, 4 months old, 5 months old, something like that. And then I have a mowing and landscaping business. So when COVID initially hit, they shut school down. So it was, and then we didn't have any responsibilities. They just shut it down. So from March 17th till we went back in August, spend time with your family, mow my mowing business where I'm not having to do it at night. I'm not doing it on the weekends. I'm doing it during school hours. And it wasn't shady because what else was I going to do? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that side of it, we loved it. I mean, I felt for people that were losing jobs, but we got paychecks for education and, we had money coming in for my mowing and landscaping business. So COVID was really good to us. We had a ton of family time. We woke up every morning, had breakfast together. We worked out. We did our teaching stuff. And then when teaching was over with, I went and mowed lawns.
How often did you check the news, and what would be your news source during all of this?
Zero.
Watch
the news for anything. Only thing I watch is the Weather Channel, and that's during mowing season. So, and I'm not I worry about kind of the things that I can control and my family. I mean, you can tell how advanced I am with technology. I have a flip phone. So I didn't worry about any of that stuff. And we didn't get caught up in what's the numbers today or what's this. We were just and now we did isolate ourselves as in I went to the grocery and by myself and it was in and out. And, I did the gloves, did all that kind of stuff. We didn't, go eat anywhere. This was before they started shutting stuff down. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't see people, but we just saw our family, my immediate family. And like I said, that side of it we loved because I have a 10-year-old, a 2.5-year-old now, and then a 5-month-old. Obviously, the 5-month-old back then wasn't around, but it was nice because I'm usually swamped with ball games, school, mowing, and we didn't have any of all that. We just mowing and, family.
Well, did you notice a change in your neighborhood, like noise level or more people out?
You didn't really see anybody. Everybody was, especially when they went to, they shut everything down and said only, essential or not, doctors and things of that nature. You didn't see anybody. My wife and I were just talking the other night. We haven't been to the movie theater since September of 2019. I mean, that's a while, yeah. Really ever go back, to be honest.
And then have you gotten into the habit of ordering your groceries online now?
No, we didn't do that then. And we tried it once or twice, but I don't know if you use that. If you make your list, if they're out of something, they just fill it with whatever's closest. And a lot of times it's not what you want. So I do most of the shopping anyway, because it's like a competition, I'm going to get this and this and I'm out. So that's I do a lot of the grocery shopping, or my daughter and I go when we do it. So yeah, that part hasn't been a problem.
So those type of normal routines or habits didn't change much during these past 2 years?
No, personally, like I said, COVID has been awesome for us. And now we all had COVID. We got it, and they say, I mean, just like in any sickness that you have, the better you take care of yourself, the less effect it's going to be on you. I don't drink, never have, don't do drugs, don't smoke. I eat healthy. I exercise 5 to 6 days a week. And I've done that since I was 4 years old as a wrestler, 46 now. So, I got COVID, felt like I had the flu, and it was done. My wife, same thing. Now it was a little scary just with the little baby,
with the little ones,
but other than that, personally, COVID was great for us. Now, professionally, it was a headache because it made my job so much harder in almost every area, because kids don't have transportation to school if we're not in school. Just all the adjustments we had to make with temperature checks, filling out we had a long sheet. We had to do checklist on kids. Just a lot of things like that. It just made it very difficult. And then our budget, it affected our budget when for a whole year, we don't have fans in the stands. That definitely affected our budget because we're still having to pay for officials, and for a varsity and JV basketball game, if it's nearly $500 and you don't have anybody coming in to pay, it hurts you. And then last year we had our basketball tournament, and before that we were allowed to have fans, and then they shut the fans off, and I tried to cancel our tournament because there's no entry fees in basketball tournaments. You have to pay the officials, but you make your money off the gate. You got no gate. You're paying out $2,800 in officials. That's not a good situation.
Well, and then I understand there would be times when your opponent could not play and you had to hustle around and try to fill that slot.
Yeah, that was frustrating too. But I didn't really get as frustrated because it's not their fault and it wasn't our fault, because it happened to us sometimes. One person on the team gets COVID, the whole team's quarantined. And this was back before they changed all the protocols. So it was 10 days. You were 10 days quarantined, and no practice, no games. So you would miss games, and then you get back and you might play. You get back on Monday, day 10, and Tuesday you have a game, but you haven't practiced in 10 days. So obviously the product you put on the court is not very good.
Well, and did when vaccines came along, did that have an impact?
I don't think so. Really, with the kids, it definitely. Yeah. They pushed it at Oklahoma City Public Schools. I believe they gave a $1,500 bonus if you showed proof that you were vaccinated. But that's really about it, because I don't think many kids were getting vaccinated.
Did you have to send some kids home?
Anyone that had a temperature above 100.6, they were sent home. So this was all the time.
Okay. I wondered how frequently.
Oh, yeah. It was daily, multiple kids daily. And if they showed up at school and their temperature, then they just got sent home. And then if they were in the classroom and you got 30 kids in the classroom and the kid tested positive for COVID, then the whole class was quarantined for 10 days.
Okay. And then the teacher too, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now that was the early stages. They started changing all, and to be honest, I couldn't keep up with all the changes because it changed every 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, now they can quarantine for 5 days. Okay, now if they weren't within 6 feet of someone for at least 15 minutes, I mean, it changed every 6 to 8 weeks.
And keeping track of all that would be difficult.
Oh, for sure. I called our athletic trainer anytime we had a situation, just said, hey, here's what's going on. I'll send you an email, brief summary of who was around this person, when they were tested, all that, and just to make sure I was doing what I was supposed to.
Were those instructions, were they coming down from like the Department of Education down to? No.
Superintendent, assistant superintendent, OKCPS.
Okay. I wasn't sure what that chain was going up and down.
They consulted like the health department and early on the state department, but just like Oklahoma City Public Schools, we went to mask and made it mandatory, but you can't do that. The governor, that whole deal about you can't make them wear a mask, but we did that at OKCPS. And if a kid threw a fit, they've got asthma, they have certain underlying symptoms, then they didn't have to wear masks. But that was probably 5 or 10 kids in the whole high school. Now, did they do a good job of keeping their mask up? No. A lot of them would keep them on the chin, hey, put your mask up, that sort of thing.
So they had them on, just not on correctly.
Exactly. And to be honest, a lot of adults did that. I mean, even up until 3 or 4 weeks ago, when they finally told us we didn't have to wear a mask, I was bad sometimes about that. So if I saw a kid had their mask down, I didn't go on, get on to them and say, hey, here's your consequences. I just said, hey, do me a favor, lift your mask up, please. And they did. There's no problem.
Were you worried about bringing it home?
Definitely.
That part.
I wasn't worried about it early because my daughter was kind of past that infant stage. But then when my wife got pregnant and we had our son in early November, he was born early. We spent the whole month of November in the hospital. So he weighed 1 pound less a month after he was born. So I was extremely scared on that situation.
So you wear yours for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then when I got COVID about 2 months after he was born, I just came up into our media room and we had an ice chest and I literally stayed up here and I didn't get anywhere around the kids or my wife or anyone.
for 10 days or however long it is. It's
right.
I keep track of that either. It's hard. Keeping track's hard. So now the situation is you're full board. Everybody's back.
Yeah, really, there's no COVID restrictions at all. Kids do not have to wear a mask. I believe our COVID protocols now, if a student tests positive or a player tests positive, whoever is within 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes and has to show signs of COVID. If there's no signs, then they're fine too. That person, even the person that tested positive for COVID, can come back in 5 days if they're not showing any symptoms.
Okay, and last basketball season, I noticed some of the players wore masks and some didn't.
So during basketball season, the mask just got lifted. During basketball season, they had to wear a mask. The mask policy during athletics, if you are actively participating, you do not have to wear a mask. Okay. If you're sitting on the bench, you have to wear a mask, and our chairs were spaced out 6 feet apart.
Okay. And then the coaches wear them all the time?
Supposed to.
In theory.
Exactly. And I get it, because I couldn't even imagine, even sometimes my weightlifting class, I would kind of pull it down and then I put it back up. And if I wasn't anywhere around someone and I was trying to give instruction, if I was kind of talking really loud, I would pull it down a little bit. So I get it. Coaches on the sidelines, they're yelling and they put their mask back up. I didn't make a big deal about it unless it was for a period of time and I wouldn't interrupt the game. But as they were walking to halftime to the locker room, I just like, Coach, come on now, do a better job, keep your mask up. And that was about it.
Okay. Well, when it first started and then like that summer and into the fall, did you have to deal with any parents that weren't happy with what the instructions were?
There's good and bad about not having parental involvement. Mm-hmm. When you're at a school that has lots of parental involvement, it's great because they, for the most part, hold their kids accountable. That's the good part of it. The bad part is you have a dad come up and his son's a junior in football that's not getting to play. And he gets to tell you that he coached him to a city championship when he was in first grade. And you get that kind of stuff. At Capitol Hill, no parental involvement means you don't deal with a lot of parents in the negative stuff, but you don't get much support as holding them accountable, making sure the kids go to school, things of that nature. The only problems that we really had with parents with COVID is when they were allowed to go to the games, I'm not wearing a mask. You have to wear a mask. If you sit in the stands and nobody's around, put it on your chin, man. I'm not going to say anything. Well, I'm not wearing a mask. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to go to the game. I'm going to the game. Listen, I'm trying to be nice here. I can escort you out of here or you can put a mask on. You're not touching me. I'm not touching you, right? But I am going to escort you out of here if you can't put a mask on. That sort of thing. We had that every once in a while.
Well, did you notice if it was more gender specific, more confrontational?
I would say it wasn't gender specific. It was more age.
Age.
People were more complaining. And when I say older, 70s and up, I don't know if it restricted their breathing, maybe, but they complained anything.
Well, did Capitol Hill have any student athletes that were using sports as a way to college?
We've had a few pre-COVID, post-COVID. There's a few, maybe some small colleges. That particular year when they shut things down in the spring, that didn't affect really any of our kids with graduation or scholarships or anything like that. The next year, it really didn't affect us either because we still played. It was tough to get them up there for practice. Now, if the kid was dedicated, and that usually kids that are going to play at the next level are going to find a way to get to practice, whether it's their bicycle, walking, calling the coach, whatever to pick them up. Those type of kids weren't affected anyway because they were at practice. It's the kids that really could take it or leave it. If it's there and they have a ride, but it's not important enough to them to make arrangements to get there. That's the ones that are affected.
Yeah, I just wondered if recruiters could not be in, or scouts couldn't be in the stands as easily. Part of that.
During that part, I apologize. During that part, yes, I would say if we had kids that for recruiting purposes, that would hurt. But now so much of it is done, with Huddle. We broadcast our games on a YouTube channel. So much of it they can see without even being there in person. It's different. You can pick up a lot of things in person. I get it. But with so much with technology now, I mean, they have hours upon hours of game footage and things like that.
Okay. Well, have you noticed a difference in the freshman class coming in?
Yes, because, and really the sophomores too. Sophomores act like eighth graders. Freshmen act like seventh graders because they really weren't in school for a year and a half. So they kind of miss that. Everyone that's been in public education talks about middle school kids. Oh, those are the toughest ones because they're really not that mature, but now they're older. So they're a lot more rowdier, rougher than the elementary K through fifth grade kids. So you take those type of kids, but now they're in physical bodies of a freshman or a sophomore. So we've had more fights this year than we've ever had in my previous years combined.
Any more emotional support or counseling, that type of thing for them?
We have counselors and they talk about, any kids that need that. I personally don't know if there's been any one-on-one or behind closed doors or any support like that. I don't know. I don't want to say yes, and I don't want to say no because I may be wrong on that.
Okay. Any staffing issues as far as teacher still issues for this current year?
I wouldn't, we have a lot of teachers that miss work pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID. Just it's the society we live in now. I mean, it's sad. To be honest with you, people don't want to work. You get 10 sick days a year, and they think, and plus 3 personal days. I think some teachers and adults, and it's probably like this in every workforce, whatever profession you're in, that I got 10 of those. I'm going to use 10 of them. I got 3 personal days. I'm going to use 3 of them. And they just use them as vacation days instead of sick days. So our numbers, I would say on average, we probably have 13 to 15 teachers gone every day. And then during COVID, it was probably worse.
So what do you think has been the biggest difference in the last 2 years? Biggest impact from
COVID?
Yeah, from COVID.
Regarding athletics or just overall?
Athletics.
I just not being in school. That's the thing, because some truly don't have transportation. Some that they'll have transportation on game night, but then they don't have transportation during practice. And they think, well, coach will let me play in the game because I can say I don't have transportation during the week. So our numbers have been lower during COVID. Anytime you have lower numbers, it's harder to run practices. It's harder to run team-oriented drills. I don't know this for a fact, but I do think just observing, I think some coaches have looked at it as my numbers are down, so I can't be as strict, as disciplined as I like to be, have as much structure. I'm going to let certain things slide. A kid in this practice, he still gets to play, or things of that nature. And that's a recipe for disaster.
Well, which sport has it impacted the greatest?
Oh, I would say the fall, or probably the fall sports, just because when we came back fall of 2020, we were still in that really hot and heavy, high numbers COVID, not really sure what to do. So we canceled several games during the fall season. But I mean, honestly, the season before, they canceled all the spring sports. So they're kind of in that same boat. I don't know really if one particular sport has suffered more, because they really have all suffered, as in spring of 2020, all spring sports were canceled. Fall of 2020, most of those games, that had to be postponed. Then it was too late to postpone anything because now we're in the winter. So they missed several games.
I was just thinking maybe the indoor sports may have suffered more because of the social distancing aspect of things.
Yeah, you would think that it's true, but like I said, spring of 2020, we had one track meet, seasons canceled. They had 3 baseball games, seasons canceled. Now, once we got to spring of 2021, we still had COVID, but it wasn't as bad because we were outside. And that's what we're talking about. Yes, we were outside. We weren't inside. So that made it nice. But yeah, I don't know one particular sport. And then that summer of 2020, I think, was crucial too, because I feel like you get better in the off season, not during the season, working on, agilities, plyometrics, strength training, things of that nature, even camps for your individual sport. But summer of 2020, we weren't allowed to do anything.
Wow. And things now are picking back almost to a new normal.
I think that's the best way you can describe it. A new normal. It's not normal, but it's a new normal, as in, and honestly, I don't think things are ever going to go back to how they were in all phases of life and society. This whole deal with all these stimulus checks, and I know we're kind of getting off on a different deal, but all that's teaching kids, whether you're in education, whether you're adults, is let's just take handouts. Let's don't work harder. Let's just take handouts. Let's take handouts. And I think there's not we'll never be back to the old normal. It's the new normal now.
Well, I mean, and from where you're sitting, have you established any new normals for the Greg Addict?
It really hasn't changed for us. Like in my personal, you're talking about my personal life, right?
Right.
Really hasn't changed. The only thing that's different is we probably don't go to social places like movies as much. We're a family that is kind of old school, as in we like to sit at our dinner table. My wife enjoys cooking. She cooks home cooked meals. We talk about our day. We try to be thrifty with our money. We don't go and, fast food and sit down. So we were really never doing those type of things anyway. So really, like I said, COVID didn't affect us in a negative way at all. It was super positive for us. And I know that's horrible to say when people lost jobs and people were affected, with depression. And then I know there's been numerous deaths with COVID, but for us, it really hasn't changed anything, because we were even thinking about, in the future, my wife teaches in Epic now, not public schools, of our young kids being in Epic, staying at home.
So if you change the way you greet someone, whether it's a wave or an elbow bump or a handshake?
I'm more of a handshake. When it was hot and heavy with COVID, I didn't do the bump or the elbow or anything. Just, hey, how are you? But now that we're kind of back to it, I shake people's hands.
And how often do you sanitize?
Probably as much as I need to. Mm-hmm. I definitely don't sanitize and wash my hands every time I shake someone's hand, but I don't know, we'll say 7-8 times a day, maybe, kind of do that. But now when COVID was at an all-time high, we kept it in your backpack. You kept it in the vehicle. Anytime you went to the store, you wiped the cart down, you got back in the vehicle, you sanitize your hands. I think once the numbers go down, and I'm just speaking for me, my wife's probably a lot better about, sanitizing and washing hands and all that. But, when you don't hear about it so much, and like I said, we don't watch the news, but being in public education, you get emails blasted at you all the time from, okay, today the numbers are this, and this. So when it's not as a big deal to them, in my mind, it's not quite as a big deal to me. So, you kind of get lazy on washing your hands after shaking someone's hand, things of that nature.
Have you noticed a shortage of something from the first couple of months to, toward end of the year? Like, could you not find something you normally could find?
Well, that's everything. You order sporting goods, like when football season's over, we need to order now for the following season. Mm-hmm. Now ordering 8 to 9 months in advance. Not usually you order June or July for football. Now you order in November, December, or you're not getting it. Mm-hmm. And that's just for sports. You buy furniture, you're getting it in 5 to 6 months, if that. The cost of everything has gone up, whether it be housing, gas, just you name it, everything's ridiculous.
And that impacts what you do at your work too, the budget, the bottom line.
Exactly.
So equipment, has there been a shortage of any particular piece of equipment or?
No, everything's been fine because we've listened to our BSN rep, our sporting goods rep. When he says, hey, get this stuff ordered now, you're not going to get it. We take him on his word. It doesn't cost any more, doesn't cost any less to order it early. We just get it ordered and we haven't had any issues.
Okay. Well, do you remember putting on the mask for the first time?
I'm trying to think. I think
I don't. So
I think the first time we put a mask on was probably around April of 2020 when we started going to the grocery store. Because I never wore a mask when March, when it all happened and we shut down schools and stuff. I didn't wear a mask when I mowed, and I just kept one in my pocket just in case one of my customers came out. But 99.9% of the time, no one's around me. When I was mowing, I was outside. It was no big deal. But I would keep one in my pocket. And then I guess when we started going to the grocery stores, we started wearing a mask.
And what about when the holidays came around, Christmas time? Did you gather with family besides your?
We did. Yeah. Nothing changed on that.
Mask or no mask? Or
no mask.
Just didn't worry about it?
Yeah, we didn't worry about it.
And no one inside your circle got a severe case of it?
I guess everyone had it. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law, they didn't have, sense of smell for 6 to 9 months, something like that.
Wow.
But it's to say they were hospitalized. No, I don't believe anybody was hospitalized. They had it about like I did. It was not fun for 36 to 48 hours. And then you kind of started feeling better. And then a week later, you felt quite a bit better.
Any member of the student body have like a parent or something like that you're
aware of? I mean, there were several students that had COVID. There's several students' parents that had COVID, but I'm not aware of anyone that was, hospitalized or maybe lost a life or anything like that.
So now going forward, do you feel comfortable that you have a plan in place should transmission increase again and have to go remote or whatever?
Plan in place would be exactly what we did before. Numbers go up again, we'll reinstate masks, we'll do temperature checks. Then they increase even more, there'll be no fans in the stands. And then if they increase any more, we shut it down again. So
lessons learned, you've learned them, and
I think so. I mean,
too many left.
Something like that happens, you're never going to be fully prepared. But now, we're on year 2. It's, I guess, starting year 3. I think everybody knows how to handle it and deal with it.
And I don't recall that anyone made a big deal out of the first anniversary. When it first started.
Right.
And now this is the second one.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. So learning loss, it's going to be hard to make up for those years.
I take COVID out of the equation. I mean, we struggle. The average ACT score at Capitol Hill is a 12. 12 points something. That's what they say. But, that's pretty crazy. I mean, when I saw that stat, I went to my principal and said, this has got to be wrong. There's no way possible. He said, there is a way possible, and it's true.
Well, you've been there, 5 or 6 years? Do you see staying there another 5 or 6?
Like, a lot of it is I enjoy my administrator. I like working for my principal because not all administrators do a good job. I believe he does a good job in all areas. He tries to understand where the kids come from, but he also holds them accountable. I think we have some good coaches. I think we have some bad coaches. I think that's at every school. I get frustrated at times just because the situation we're in at Capitol Hill, and there's other OKCPS schools that are in the same boat. Like, I compare it to, when I was at Walters or when I was at Crooked Oak, I knew going in what the situation was. They were not very good at the sport that I coach, but I have complete control over this, and I can build it from the bottom up. And year one's going to be tough. Year two will be better. Year three will be in the playoffs, and possibly even year two being in the playoffs. And that's what we did at Crooked Oak. But here, you can't build it up from the bottom up because they don't play sports. Those kids don't have the money to play out of school sports at a young age. Then they get into middle school and they don't even start playing until 7th or 8th grade. And then now our enrollment keeps going up and up and up, and you're trying to play 6A2 football, the Stillwaters, the Bigsby's, the teams like that, and you can't compete.
Can't do it. A lot of challenges still.
Oh, for sure. So it's kind of like beating your head against the wall sometimes. That's what you feel like. And it is nice that when you do see kids, that you see them as a freshman and they grow as a student, they grow as an athlete. They come to practice every day. They learn from their mistakes, things like that. Because in the big scheme of things, that's what it's about anyway. And then those type of people are productive citizens in society. But the problem is you don't have enough of those kids, and that's why you can't compete.
Okay.
Because to me, sports, it's not about talent. It's nice to have that talent, but I know we won a lot of games at Walters I was the fastest person on the team as a grown adult, and it shouldn't be that way. I was the strongest person on the team, and I shouldn't be the strongest person. But those kids worked hard. They cared about each other. They didn't care who got the credit. They showed up to practice. They didn't backtalk. They were a sponge when it came to knowledge, and we won a lot of games. And those kids became successful adults. We just don't have a whole lot of that at Capitol Hill because the parental involvement is not very good.
And the aspect of team building is important. And that's
it's huge. Huge.
Yeah. So we've covered all of my questions. Is there anything that we need to that I haven't thought to ask?
Not that I can think of.
Well, I'll usually end with, two things. Let's flash forward 50 years. What do you think it would be helpful for ADs to know about this the last 2 years?
Oh, I don't know if there's anything to be helpful about COVID in 50 years, but what I think would be helpful is technology is great, and all the things that come with technology, but there's no substitute for building relationships, working hard, holding kids accountable, providing structure, and taking discipline and love and blending them together. And that's how you make successful student athletes. And I think we're caught up so much in this technology and Facebook and TikTok and all this stuff. And that's not building relationships, sending someone a text message or, a TikTok video or whatever. I think building relationships with coaches, building relationships with the kids, that's what it's about.
It takes some face-to-face
exactly
in action to accomplish that.
Yes, not the cell phone stuff. I mean, I'm old, but I really think I'm more like 87 years old. Like I should have coached and been around and coached from say 1971 to 1991. It's tough for me. Like, I don't know if I will ever go back to coaching. Staying as an AD is fine, but the coaching side of it, to me, you've got to understand where people come from, but right is right, wrong is wrong. Hold people accountable, work hard, build relationships, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, that's just not what society is. It's just getting farther and farther and farther away from that. And it's definitely evident in the school system.
How did you learn all of that? Did you have a mentor or someone?
Well, I think it's just how I was raised. My dad worked really hard. My mom worked hard. They believe, and that's how I believe, and that's how I raise my kids. We don't want a penny from anybody. We don't want a penny from the government. We don't want a penny from inheritance. We don't want any of that stuff. You look outside, you look at our house. If we have nice things, that means your mom and dad worked hard. And that's the way you get stuff. We don't, this whole GoFundMe account, these, fundraisers where you just go ask people for money. That's not a fundraiser. That's begging for money. You're going to go wash somebody's windows. You're going to mow somebody's lawn. You're going to sweep their driveway, stuff like that. And that's just what society's not now. So, I started wrestling at 4 years old. My dad was my coach. And, I mean, it was probably to the extreme, but I remember having my list of chores alongside my list of exercises of running, push-ups, squats, all those things at 4 years old. So you learn that, and then, you learn age-appropriate tasks for jobs, and, you should be given, to me, age-appropriate money. You've got to go mow a yard. I mean, I started mowing other people's lawns, I think in sixth grade. So I didn't have a lot. I think I had 14 or 15 lawns, but my parents made me buy my own equipment. The money I used or I made, I had to, if I wanted, say, Air Jordans instead of normal shoes, I had to pay for it for myself. And, I wanted a bike, I had to buy my own bike. And you learn those, that bike was spotless every day. When I got home, I cleaned my shoes every day. You learn how to take care of things. You learn the value of $1. And I just think that the kids that you coach now, not all of them, because there's good kids and there's good parents, but there's a lot of kids that don't have that. And I think that's why when they get in the workforce, I mean, that's why you see this problem we have now. They talk about everyone losing jobs, but every restaurant, every fast food, every deal, they got a sign in the door. Or though, like my wife told me one time, she went to Sonic and it was shut down because they didn't have workers. So, the whole philosophy of whatever it takes to make money and provide for your family, they don't, society doesn't agree to that. Like I told my wife when COVID, first hit, she was worried about, teaching. I told her, don't worry about it. You have to have education. Well, what about mowing lawns? Trust me, people will still do that. I said, even if they take education away, they take mowing away, we will be just fine, because if you're willing to work, it may not be the job you want, but if you're willing to work, there's somebody's going to pay you to do a job.
I would imagine the mowing might have gone down some during COVID because people had had time to go out and do it. They still didn't do it.
People are lazy. And right. I lost one account out of, at the time, I had about 85 yards a week. I lost one account because the guy said I lost my job and I'm moving. I can't even afford any of the stuff. Okay. But I had numerous people call me when the governor, or maybe it was the mayor, I can't remember, did that deal of everything is shut down except essential stuff. And they're like,
governor still.
Yeah. And I said, yes, it'll be fine. I'll come and mow. So it didn't affect us one single bit. The only thing it did was I had more time on my hands to do it and not have to do it at night or on the weekends. It was great.
Mm-hmm. So it's been an okay 2 years for the most part.
Personally, great. Yeah, personally, great.
Work a little different.
Work has been a different deal just because you better be able to adjust and adapt. And if you can't do that and you get stressed out, you probably are going to want to quit.
Would you talk with other ADs very often to see what situations were at their place and how they were handling things?
Yeah, we talk all the time. I mean, even now, we have monthly Zoom meetings during that time. So we would all bounce ideas off each other and, hey, would this work for you guys, or it didn't work, or that sort of thing.
Anything that comes to mind that you tried that didn't work?
Well, some of the stuff we were kind of handcuffed on. Like we just had to do what we were told, when it came to COVID, just because it came from the superintendent and the school board and things like that. I thought some of it was a little ridiculous. If you let's use wrestling, for example. They didn't want to do any handshakes after games, showing sportsmanship. So wrestling, I told them, and they kind of got frustrated with me and said, okay, I just want to make sure we're on the same page here. I'm going to wrestle this person chest to chest, legs to legs, face to face sometimes, sweating each other, 3 2-minute periods. So for 6 minutes, we're going to be all over each other. But after the match, I can't shake his hand and say, good job. Doesn't make sense to me. And they were like, oh, don't kill the messenger. I said, oh, we'll do whatever you guys tell us, but it's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. So there was things I didn't agree with, but I just did it because in the big scheme of things, it wasn't a deal I was going to draw a line in the sand. Like it was against everything I believed in. And it wasn't anything like that. It was just, I thought it was stupid.
Yeah, choose your battles.
Exactly. Exactly.
Win a few. All right, Greg, I'll let you go on to your next thing and say thank you for spending the afternoon with me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good visiting with you.
You've been great.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.